Do you believe that metaplots by game designers, such as the one in the Old World of Darkness or the Dark Sun Prism Pentad of novels, are ultimately self-destructive for a game or setting? Or are they a boon?
The perennial challenge in publishing role-playing games has always been that you can only really monetize 1/6 of the people at the table, the games master. The games master is usually one person who does most of the games mastering, and they tend to be the one that buys all the products. This is a little unfair because it puts all of the economic hardship on a single player. But from a business's point of view, you want to sell things to everyone else as well. And you also want people to buy books that they are kind of maybe about, right? Metaplot was a way of, intentionally or otherwise, was a way of encouraging everyone to buy everything. And to an extent it worked up to a point, right? People wanted to know how the world was progressing, how the various elements were interacting and so on. And so that kind of approach got a lot of people to buy in to games and books that they weren't necessarily ever going to use, but were just going to read for the snippets of Metaplot so that they could put together what was happening in the background. And it worked for that. So I think it was successful as a capitalistic enterprise. And I think that's down to a couple of extra things. I think it was only really successful with White Wolf's games. And I think it was only really successful to the level that it was because of the existence of the live-action role-playing society. This was a bunch of hardcore fans who wanted to know what was going on and had an interest in every branching path of the World of Darkness and how they would all interact and what was going on in the official world, which would then be translated through into the LARP. So you had a dedicated group of super fans who were going out dressed up every weekend, pretending to be their characters, who were heavily invested in the world and what was going on. They didn't stick the landing in a lot of ways. They fucked Mage up with the Avatar Storm. They fucked Vampire up without having the end times live up to the hype. It was all a bit of a Mass Effect ending there, I think. And that soured a lot of people on the idea of Metaplot because it just couldn't pay off to the extent that people wanted. And ultimately, it robbed characters, players, of agency over the world that they were interacting with. If you've done a whole bunch of plot stuff to do with something, and then the Metaplot comes along and steamrollers that, then the games master or the LARP storyteller or whatever feels an immense amount of pressure to go with the canonical world, right? And thus the steamroller and completely fuck up everything that you've spent all this time doing. And so Metaplot taking place was okay, but there was no player input to it. You had no influence on events. You had no agency. I think the way Games Workshop kind of does that by tracking official battles and things is a bit better. It makes you feel that there are stakes and that there is something you might be able to do to influence an outcome there. So that's maybe a better way of doing it. But without that dedicated core of fans, I don't think Metaplot has been as successful in, say, Exalted, for example, or other games that have tried to do it. You need that high-level buy-in for it really to work. Otherwise, the long-term detriment far outweighs any benefit that you might get. If you're gonna do it, it's probably best to leave it kind of vague and leave space for interpretation and personalization at people's individual tables, LARPs, whatever it is that you're writing for. But Metaplot can sell books, but sabotages your line in the long run. unless you've really got a fantastic ending.